Hello and welcome to Unlocking the Power of UpCloud Kubernetes, or UKS. I'm your host, Will Barlow, and let's have a little run through of what we'll be talking about today. So today's presenters are myself, the host, and then the two more knowledgeable people following along with this are Miguel and Nate, both part of our UKS team, engineer and product manager respectively. We're going to be running through what is UKS, what's new with UKS, how challenges have sparked solutions and improvements with our product, a demo, and the UKS roadmap, and followed by a Q&A. If you have any questions, curiosities, or anything like that, please ask away, and we're going to tackle those at the end of the presentation. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, since we can crack straight on, which is Miguel. He'll be covering what is UKS and a few more topics. So please welcome Miguel.
Thanks, Will. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So let's see. Well, Will already introduced me, so I'm not gonna double down and introduce myself. Moving on. So let's see. What is UKS? So as most of you will be aware of, Kubernetes has become the de facto industry for the de facto standard for the industry to run containers and do container orchestration. For us, it has been an ambition for a while to have our own managed Kubernetes service. This is our response to that trend in the industry. It's been quite a journey. We had launched an original version of the product. We iterated on that. Learned a lot about our mistakes. It's been quite a learning journey, and here we are today, relaunching UKS on a completely new architecture. What is it? So essentially, UKS is a managed Kubernetes service. It basically attempts to lower the barrier for adoption for Kubernetes by abstracting away the control plane so that you do not have to worry about setting up clusters, and you can focus on building your applications. And it aims to deliver high performance and scalability for your workloads at a predictable price. It is designed for both developers and businesses looking to run containers in the cloud and to do that in a reliable manner. What is new with UKS? So, like I said, with our original introduction of a managed Kubernetes service, we had a few bumps on the road, and we had to learn from those mistakes. And one of the pain points that we kept hearing about from our customers was the need for automatic clusters. For those of you who do not know, the Kubernetes project, the open source Kubernetes project, it releases two new versions, two minors every year. It used to be 3, now it's down to 2, but it's still quite a fast-paced project. And so keeping up with newer versions of Kubernetes can be challenging. If you were running Kubernetes on your own, you would have to cope with the effort of upgrading your Kubernetes clusters manually every time. Of course, you could just stick with your existing version, but those versions reach end of life roughly a year after being launched. So you don't want to do that. With UKS, what we're trying to do here is take that complexity out of your hands so that you don't have to worry about upgrading your clusters, and you can choose the time and the window of time, the timing, and the way in which your clusters are upgraded. Also, another thing that we are trying to double down on is simplicity. Why? Well, again, Kubernetes is the de facto standard for the industry, and it is exceedingly powerful. But with great power comes great complexity. And one recurring pain point with Kubernetes across the board is that it is hard to adopt. It is hard to adopt because it's a very complex project, and there is lots of training available, but for whatever reason, so there's always issues of bandwidth. There's a steep learning curve. You may have the people, but they may be busy. you may not have the time. So it's difficult to ramp up and skill up on Kubernetes. So what we're trying to do is strike the right balance between lowering the barrier of adoption and allowing you to get started with Kubernetes really, really fast and in a few clicks, while preserving your ability to go deeper into it as your skills mature. And this is, of course, a challenging well, it's a challenge, but we have an amazing team of very talented engineers and UX designers that are helping us achieve this goal. And then finally, I am very, very happy to announce that we have recently released a free developer control plane. So if you want to get started with managed Kubernetes, you can you can simply browse to upcloud.com, log in, and create your first cluster with our free developer control plane, and it's free forever, and you don't need to worry about that, and you only need to, and you're free to choose the data plane that you like. This is our attempt to not just lower the cognitive barrier for adoption, but also lower the economic barrier for adoption. Because, of course, it is also a recurring pain point that, well, if you're only just beginning in this journey and you have a limited budget to try something out, then, of course, this might be a concern. You don't want to spend a lot of money trying to run something that you're not very familiar with. So we're taking that pain point also away and making this developer control plane free. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my dear colleague, Nate.
All right, thank you very much. So yeah, as mentioned, I'm Nate. I am the lead software engineer here on the UKS team. So I am here to talk a little bit. Miguel talked a little bit about challenges that we faced along the road, and I'm here to talk a little bit about how challenges have sparked solutions. So how we got here. Since late 2024, our team has been hard at work getting our managed Kubernetes service into even better shape. Miguel took a moment and talked a little bit about the UI and UX, and we're firm believers here that usability has to be the center of everything we do, especially with a product like Kubernetes. There's just no getting around it. It's complex. So anything we can do to make that adoption, as you said, a little bit smoother, the better. Our goal was to make deployments effortless, removing the learning curve commonly associated with running Kubernetes. I can say firsthand also that the control plane is definitely one of the more complicated parts when it comes to managing that. So if we could kind of hide that, move that away, we can kind of let users kind of answer the so what. Like, I have a big cluster. Well, so what? Well, I actually just want to run a WordPress site. I want to run my hobby website. We remove all that complexity and let you focus on what matters to you. The updates that we've announced today are just the tip of the iceberg. Like Miguel said, we've already made some really amazing steps forward to simplifying the UI and the UX, but we're just getting warmed up. It's really exciting to kind of see the beginning of this journey and hearing more from the users and see where that takes us. Let's see. So the next section here is where we found challenges. And so one of the nice things, and also one of the not so nice things, is that we get to be our own customer. UKS wouldn't really be where it is without our UpCloud virtual machines, our UpCloud load balancers, our SDNs. So it's kind of a really cool moment in the sense that we really kind of building on top of great products. One of the things I liked when we were in the process of building our first internal demo was, so even before we announced this publicly, it's kind of actually standing right here a couple of years ago, and we hit the button kind of showing the different people in the audience, like, once the cluster is being created, like the virtual machine team kind of got to see their virtual machines going up. The load balancer team got to see their thing being provisioned. It was kind of a cool moment of kind of saying, like, this is a product that kind of celebrates all the other great things that we have going on. And some of the other different features in our roadmap. I'm really excited to see how that journey continues. The downside as the challenge is, though, that we kind of have to look in the mirror. We can't blame user experience because that's us. So it kind of forced us to really kind of take ownership of that complexity. If I can't make it simpler for myself, there's no way I can expect the users who don't even know who I am to have any much of an easier experience. As we were working on this sort of new control plane architecture, we had made some assumptions kind of how this would work, but then kind of came, face to face again with the customer. And those assumptions didn't necessarily pay off in terms of scale. So then we had to kind of sit down and go, okay, we see this problem. What do we do now? So it kind of gave us a moment to kind of really, we could take this one-off solution, but that doesn't really make the product any better. How do we do this in a way that we can all benefit from? And we're happy to say that, I think we can all benefit from it now. So we now have, as Miguel mentioned, the free tier, but then also we're building up larger and larger plans that allow us to kind of meet the customer where they are at and scale to their needs. And where user responsibility leads to platform reliability. In the past, when it's just dealing with traditional workloads like a virtual machine, that kind of barrier between managed or like a platform for a cloud and then the user space is very distinct. But when it comes to a managed service like Kubernetes, that barrier is a bit different because a virtual machine just works. As long as the host works, then there you go. But when you have a managed service, that virtual machine might still work, but if different control plane components aren't working, yeah. So kind of trying to avoid finger pointing and just taking a moment to learn where the user is struggling and what we can do to make that a little bit smoother. So these are just a kind of a brief overview of some of the things we've learned along the way, and just very happy to kind of start this next chapter and continue down that road. So without further ado, I believe it is time for Miguel to take the reins and show us a quick little demo of some things Kubernetes can do.
Thanks, Nate. Okay, cool. So demo time. This is going to be a live demo, and we're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, but we'll see how that goes. Let me see. Can you? Okay, so let me switch over to my terminal. So what we've prepared today is a demo that is a bit geeky but fun and quite well known in the Kubernetes world. It's called KubeDoom, and essentially what it does is it allows you to play Doom, the video game, but run it on Kubernetes, and every time you kill a monster, one of your pods dies. And what this demo is attempting to prove is the self-healing capabilities of Kubernetes, because every time a daemon dies, a pod gets killed, and then it gets respawned because Kubernetes is trying to keep the number of pods as you've stated in your deployment. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you our command line. So opctl help, right? Sorry. opctl command not found. You see, this is what happens with live demos. Oh, I misspelled it. Sorry. opctl. Okay, and we have opctl Kubernetes. Sorry. And we have now, and I have an alias for that called UKS, and I can go up UKS list, and it will list my clusters, right? I have 2 clusters running. Now I'm going to go, what I can do is uctl or UKS config, right? And the name of my, or the ID for my cluster, and it will show me the, sorry, right, and will show me the kube config for my cluster. I can, this is showing it in text format, but I can output the format into a put the output into a YAML file, and I've already done that. So I can go export kubeconfig and point it to the kubeconfig YAML file that I've exported, and now I can talk to my cluster, and I can go kubectl get pods namespace KubeDoom, and you will see that I have 1 KubeDoom pod running here. On top of that, I have in the default namespace, if I go to pods, I have, you'll see I have 5 Nginx pods running. And then now what I'm going to do is I am going to tap into the logs of the KubeDoom pod. Go kubectl logs. There you go. My namespace KubeDoom, and then the name of the pod. And I want, I think it was, what was it, equal? Okay, I want the last 20 lines, right? But now I want to see that as it changes, so watch of that. Okay, so these are my pods running. And what you're gonna see here is me playing KubeDoom. And it's gonna be a little bit slow, but I have some cheat codes here. So here are the daemons. So I have some, for those of you who may be wondering how come I'm not getting killed, there are some cheat codes for KubeDoom that allow me to be invincible and have all the weapons and all the ammo that I could possibly need. And as I start killing monsters on the right-hand side, you can see how the logs on the left-hand side show that the pods are getting killed, but they respawn. And that's effectively it. So what we're gonna do is, so it was so you can find repositories where KubeDoom is, sorry, yeah, you can find repositories on the web where KubeDoom is explained, and you can run that locally. What we're gonna do is we're gonna publish a fork of the repo that shows you how to run KubeDoom on UKS. So you can go and hop on over to upcloud.com, start your own cluster, and try that out for yourselves. And with that, right, okay, so. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the roadmap. Okay, so as we've briefly mentioned in Q1 of this year, we've been focusing on the new architecture for UKS, plus renewing our certification on Kubernetes 1.30 and 1.31. The slide is I missed updating this. Sorry. So we renewed our certification for Kubernetes 130 earlier this year. We recently, just last week, renewed it for 131. For those of you who do not know, that the Kubernetes project has, sorry, I should say, the CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, has a certification program by which, if you have a Kubernetes-based offering such as UKS, you have to get it certified in order to be able to, let's say, call it proper Kubernetes. So if you're shopping for a managed Kubernetes service, you should first check out the CNCF's repository and have a look at the managed, the certified vendors there. And so I'm very happy to say we've recently renewed the certification for 131 as well. Then our free developer control plane, and like we've discussed, simplified user journey towards deploying Kubernetes clusters. Of course, there's a ton more work to be done in terms of lowering the cognitive barrier for deploying Kubernetes. Again, we want to double down in making Kubernetes. You cannot really make Kubernetes simple, but we want to help people adopt it as much as possible. In Q2, we are going to double down on making UKS more fit for even larger customers. We already have some very large customers running on UKS, and we can confidently say that that our product has proved that it can perform. But what we want to do now is continue to build larger and larger control planes so that we can cope with much larger clusters moving forward. We also want, so we're releasing today automatic upgrades. And so meaning now that we have, if you're running a Kubernetes 130 cluster on UKS, you can now just by the push of a button, have that cluster upgraded to 131, and you don't need to worry about anything else. And then, of course, moving forward in the very short term, we also aim to renew our certification with Kubernetes 132, and then continue to do that in lockstep or as closely in lockstep with the Kubernetes project as we possibly can. In Q3 of this year, we're going to double down on our managed Kubernetes journey by improving the integration between UKS and our other UpCloud products. So we have a portfolio of managed services that includes managed Postgres, managed MySQL, managed Valkey, and managed OpenSearch, as well as object storage and a number of other networking products like managed load balancer. Today we have, let's say, our integration with those other products in our portfolio is a vanilla integration. So you can, of course, integrate, but it's not always as intuitive as we'd like it to be. So we're going to double down on making that as seamless as possible so that you can not just adopt UKS with ease, but then or Kubernetes with ease, but then you can also integrate it with our other products with the click of a button. Also, we are doubling down on, again, making Kubernetes simpler to adopt by simplifying the adoption of commonly used add-ons. So what do we mean by that? So probably once you've deployed your first Kubernetes cluster and you've done your hello world examples and you've started deploying, you've started to feel comfortable with it, and you start deploying your application to it, you will want to also start deploying other things like, for example, horizontal pod scaler or cluster autoscaler, the Kubernetes dashboard, and other such add-ons. Another very common one, for example, would be Prometheus, and so on and so forth. We want to also make that as seamless as possible. Of course, again, always not abstracting it away, but making it more accessible, while also leaving the room for the power user that is super comfortable with Kubernetes to do it their own way. And then in Q4 later in this year, we want to continue our journey towards ease of use with templated applications for UKS, and to also lower the barrier of adoption for security on Kubernetes, because this is one other thing that we know is a recurring pain point. So once you have adopted Kubernetes and you've managed to make your application scale, then you start thinking about maybe your the security settings. Is my cluster correctly configured? Because as complexity grows, so grows the possibility or the probability of human error. And so we want to make sure that it's super simple for you to see whether your clusters are secure, and if not, then to secure them. And then, of course, the other major overarching theme for us is troubleshooting. So it's one thing to adopt something with ease, but then also as applications grow and your cluster grows and you start breaking new ground and experimenting with adding more tools to your Kubernetes cluster, you may run into issues. And this is very common. We have some very large customers already running on UKS, and sometimes they deploy applications that maybe are misconfigured, or they are just, it's part of their learning journey as well. And we want to help you in that learning journey. So we want to try and help you make sure that you don't get stuck for days on end troubleshooting your own Kubernetes cluster. So this is, of course, there's a very fine line between when something goes wrong with the data plane and when something goes wrong with the control plane. And this is one of the challenges of having a managed Kubernetes service, but making it easier for a customer to be able to troubleshoot issues when they're deploying applications and tools to Kubernetes is also a big ambition for us. And with that, I think we can move on to Q&A. Let's see. So David Eaton says, thanks for the free developer control plane. You're welcome. Then can you show the upload interface to set this up?
It was during the Doom deployment, I believe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, sure. No worries. We can do that. Let me... Okay, so basically you go to, this is our web console. We call it Hub. This is UpCloud Hub. You basically go to Kubernetes here. You click a button here to create a cluster. You pick one of our zones here. Let's say VHEL 1. You pick the developer plan. You have to create a private network here. Let's call it My Network. Create private network. And then you pick your node group. Say you want this one. So 1 core, 4 gigabytes of RAM and 40 gigabytes of disk. That's 15 euros per month. You can see the total price here. So, but notice that that cost is for the nodes, not for the control plane. The control plane is free. You pick the number of nodes. Let's say you want 2. You add your SSH key. So if needed for whatever reason, you need to jump onto the node, you can do that. And then you hit create cluster. And then what this will do is it will create the control plane. It will create all the components of the control plane on our end, and then you get the nodes, and you can start deploying workloads to your nodes. That's it. Simple as that.
About plans to support patch versions from 1.31 to 1.2.
Yeah, patch versions are something we've been looking into. We've just recently introduced upgrades to miners. We want to iterate on that because, of course, we realize that there might be patches that are of specific interest if you've run into specific bugs with a lower patch. So yes, that's part of our ambition to double down. For the record, so one thing that I mentioned before, oh yeah, I should probably show you this. This is the Doom UKS cluster that we were looking into before. If you want to see where the upgrades are, you go to settings here, and I don't have available versions here because this is already a 131 cluster, and we don't have 132 available yet. But this is where you would see the available versions for you to upgrade, and you'd be able to upgrade your cluster with a click of a button.
We had one last question about what upgrades we can see on Q3. I believe we mentioned it, but if you want to hop back to that slide just to cover it.
Yes, of course. Right. So in terms of add-ons, the ones that we want to tackle first or on priority are the ones that are most commonly used. And those, from what we've seen, so the feedback that we've received, the questions that we get from support tickets, and the feedback that we get with our customers when we talk to them, those would, for the most part, be mainly the metrics server, because you need it for the horizontal pod autoscaler, then the cluster autoscaler, which is the one that actually increments the capacity on your cluster by deploying new nodes. The Kubernetes dashboard seems to be of interest. And Prometheus would be another one that might also be of interest based on the feedback that we've received so far. If you have an interest in a particular add-on that you would like to see included there, please reach out. You can reach reach out to support and give us feedback over support, and we'll gladly take that request into consideration. Okay. Cool. So
I'll wrap it up.
So thank you guys very much for tuning in for our first Kubernetes webinar of the year. I'm sure we'll be having some follow-up sessions where we maybe get into a bit more of a deeper dive in terms of Kubernetes deployments, what you can do and what we're working on. As you can see, we've got a really big plan for the rest of the year. This is just the tip of the iceberg where we feel it's the most significant updates we can be releasing. But from here, as you can see, we've got a lot more coming on. So we'll be doing a lot more blog posts, updates, and even some customer use cases or case studies rather in terms of how they've been impacted by our new Kubernetes and what we're doing to basically improve the Kubernetes experience for everybody that uses it here. But yeah, that looks to be all the questions. So thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. And we will see you in the next one.